Good evening and welcome to tonight's agenda briefing forum. This evening is not a decision-making forum. It is the briefing on the agenda for the Ordinary Council meeting, which will be held next Tuesday, 24th of May. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. There are no leave of absence this evening. Councillor Clark is an apology and Councillor Sally Palmer is attending via electronic means. All other councillors are present in the chamber this evening. I'll now move on to item 4, deputations. We have 6 deputations this evening. 2 have been submitted in writing and 4 will be presented in person. Members of the gallery and deputies, welcome to this evening. I will explain how the deputation process will work for those of you here the first time. Each person who is presenting a deputation will be invited to come forward and speak at the microphone. You'll be invited to speak for up to 5 minutes, and as we get close to the 5-minute mark, I will let you know so that you can conclude your deputation. After your deputation, the councillors may have some questions for you. If you are speaking on the same item as another, however, it would be appreciated if you could add additional information rather than simply repeating what has already been presented. Once the deputations have been completed, we'll go through the rest of the agenda and councillors can ask questions on any of the reports on the agenda. As I mentioned before, this is not a decision-making evening. We will meet next week where the agenda will be put forward and councillors will vote on the items then. So our first deputation this evening is in relation to item 10.3.2. Mr. Ian Herbert is here and speaking in support of the officer's recommendation. Please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity. Okay. Can you hear me now? Yes, I can hear me. Good evening, Mayor and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to make a submission on behalf of the City of Bayswater Men's Shed. We're here basically to hope for your support for the some additional 82 square metres in the existing premises at 21 King Street in Bayswater. Now, I won't go into any great detail. We all have a home to go to, so I'll be as brief as possible. We have on the agenda a sum of $40,000, which has been set aside for the potential costs of this addition, which consists basically of partitioning and electrical work. It is a substantial sum, and we're aware that the city does not have a lot of excess funds at the present time. The shed is prepared to pay the sum of $7,000 towards the cost of this work. It is about 17% of the total cost are estimated. This is a fairly substantial contribution from the shed's perspective. I'd just like to run it past you exactly what this actually means to the shed. It's about 6 hot dog stands at Bunnings, and we get 2 per year, so that's about 3 years worth of earnings for us at Bunnings to get $7,000. It's about 6 market opportunities at either Maylands or Noranda, and we haven't had a market opportunity for the last 2 years, well, with the exception of the last three months. So this is a substantial opportunity, a substantial cost, as you can advise. We make and we sell toys and other wood household items for the benefit of the public and to make money for the shed. We'll have raffles for a carton of beer as well, to raise money. We are not a stagnant organisation. We are looking forward to trying to create a better environment for the shed members. And this 82 square metres which we are requesting as nominated in the report will be of great benefit to the shed members in as much as we can get extra space. We can have a safer and more compliant working environment. The shed at the present time is fairly compact. We are not like a model agency. You know, we don't make model planes. We have machinery. We have tools. All of this requires space, and we are absolutely critically short of space at the present time. So thank you for your attention, and I hope you will support the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your deputation, Mr. Herbert. Before you sit down, I'll just ask if there are councillors that have any questions for you. No. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Before we continue, councillors, I'll just let you know that I've been advised there is a technical issue with the live streaming. So we are currently not live streaming, but IT are working on that, and hopefully this will be resolved soon. I'll now move on to the next deputation, which is again in relation to item 10.3.2. Mr. Bill Voss, speaking in support of the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. As President of the Bayswater Community Men's Shed, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to speak for this motion. I speak on a number of points to clarify what we will do and the extra space, with the extra space, and how we can contribute. Apart from a dust extraction unit which is currently being installed, we do not plan to add any new powered machines to our usage. We merely wish to locate existing machines to ensure a safer and less cramped work area. No welding or other spark producing machinery will be used in the area of the proposed expansion. The men's shed power usage is both minimal and highly intermittent. Much of the work in the shed is comprised of forming wooden parts for making kids' toys, cutting boards, etc. As such, much of our work is done by using hand shaping and cutting tools. The shed provides services to the community in form of making and repairing of household items where requested by members of the Bayswater community. Items which would not be commercially viable to make or repair, thus providing a recycling service in line with the community expectations and values. Thanks to a recently passed founding member of the shed, and many of you will remember Tony Green, we secured by way of a federal grant a 13 kilowatt solar panel installation on the roof of the men's shed. Most of the power generated is available to the ranger station. The separate meter installed on our main board will attest to this. Whilst our preferred option is to provide goods and labour for the expansion, we understand that this would not comply with work health and safety legislation. In acknowledgement of the cost to the city, the shed, as Ian suggested, we would like to provide up to $7,000 by way of reorganising and delaying of other expenditures. We've talked this through as a committee with the Treasurer, etc., and he said if we delayed a number of things, we did a few more sausage sizzles if they come up, we can come up with the $7,000. We will also offer to assist in any material way we can to the process. The men's shed believes that the opportunity to increase the floor space is of great importance to the long-term viability by providing a safer and more satisfying place to allow men to engage with each other through community projects. The Men's Shed Committee recommends that the Council support the Officer's recommendation in recognition of the strategic implications as noted in accordance with the City of Bayswater's Strategic Community Plan 21 to 31, and that then the Men's Shed will contribute the sum of $7,000 towards the cost of the project in recognition of our commitment to the ongoing provision of offering men a place to communicate and prosper. So thank you very much for this opportunity to talk, and thank you to the councillors and the officers for recommending this proposal. So I guess there's questions from anybody now.
I'll just thank you very much. I'll ask if there are any questions. Councillor Strzowski.
Thank you. You mentioned in your deputation about the no new powered machinery. The officer's report mentions that there may be a need to spend maybe up to $20,000 on new electrical. So hearing your deputation tonight, you've said there's no new powered machinery. So how will you be using that space?
So we'll expand our work areas. We don't have enough workbenches for chaps to work at. They're sort of crowded and sort of cramped with the workbenches we've got. We'll move some of our machinery into that area to make more room for the area. We have provided, at our cost, I think a ducting channel through the roof to provide power along the length of the shed, which would then be able to use by electricians to extend the power. So that should save a fair bit of money as well. And I must say that the members actually built all that. We purchased the parts. We got them at a good price from the electrical wholesalers, and then we actually installed it. We had one of the members had scaffolding, which we erected, and we put all that ducting up. And we also made provision for that to support the dust extraction ducting as well. So we are working towards providing as much as we can to the shed, and that should help with the electrical. But as far as new machines, we don't intend buying any more machines. I think we have enough. The only new machine we still have to connect is the dust extractor, and the electricians have been through. That was a donation as well. We just have to buy the materials, and Gilders Electrical has offered to install it for free. So we've purchased some of the parts already. One of our members is a fabulous sheet metal worker. The skill of this chap is unbelievable. He is going to make up the cabinet to house all the electrical bits and pieces. So we do get a lot of community support, which I'm really surprised at. And I mean, the value of that electrical work is quite substantial. So, I mean, it's going to cost us a couple of $1,000s in parts and everything and cabling and whatever. But his labour for two blokes to work there for just over half a day, I think, is very generous.
Thank you. So you don't anticipate that we would have to spend $20,000 on new electrical works?
I think 20,000 is a lot for what they're suggesting, a few three-phase power points, 15-amp power point and a few 6 double GPOs. I think it's sort of like a lot of money. But I can't say that I'm 100% familiar with the cost of things. So, but I'm hoping it won't cost 20,000.
Are there any other questions, councillors? No, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.
Our next deputation is again in relation to item 10.3.2. Mr. Bob Hutchinson has submitted a written deputation. Councillors, you've all been provided with that. And we've also received another written deputation on the same item from Mr. Laurie Aarons. So we'll now move on to the next deputation, which is in relation to item 10.4.1. Mr. Adrian Dew from Rowe Group, speaking against the officer's recommendation.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to speak on item 10.4.1 tonight, which is the proposed two-storey house at 4 Neville Street in Bayswater. My name is Adrian Dew and I'm a town planner at Rowe Group. Rowe Group acts on behalf of the landowners of 4 Neville Street. They're Paz and Cheryl, who are sitting with me in the gallery tonight. We've reviewed the agenda report and we've just got a number of key concerns relating to the officer's recommendation, and we actually request council's support of the application at next week's council meeting. Just by way of background as well, as part of the development application process, the city was provided with a justification letter that provided justification against the design principles of the R codes for the location of the driveway, which is what's in question with the application. And the justification letter also provided an assessment against the wider context of the area and applicable town planning framework. As part of the officer's report, we note that a copy of the justification letter that we provided hasn't been provided to the councillors. I've therefore attached it to a copy of this deputation, so I hope everyone's got a copy of that, or could review it later. Just so the councillors can consider the matter with all of the material that was provided to the city. However, if not, at this point that you haven't had a chance to review it, I'll just provide a quick summary of how the design would meet the design principles of the R codes. So the design and location of the crossover on the most northeastern point of the site, it wouldn't create any impact on vehicle safety or sight lines. The proposed crossover allows for legible and universal access to the dwelling for the residents and visitors. Without the driveway, the dwelling won't be able to be accessed by elderly grandparents or elderly parents in a safe manner, which I'll touch on a bit further later. As it stands, there's no pedestrian pathways within this side of the street verge of 4 Neville Street, abutting the subject site. So the proposed crossover won't create any undue safety concerns for pedestrians and the like. The development of the crossover in the proposed location won't result in the removal of any street trees, and it's not located within proximity to any street trees either to potentially impact on the routable area. The proposed location as well will allow for the emergency vehicles to access the site in a safe and legible way in the event of an emergency. Another thing that we touch on in the justification report is the established precedent in the area. So I've reviewed a number of the laneways and dwellings that abut the laneways, and the city's approved 8 dwellings with access via the primary street where there is access to a right-of-way, and that's within 400 metres of the site. And one of the examples that we've provided in the justification use the same right-of-way as 4 Neville Street. And also for clarity for all the councillors, the clause that is in where we would be requesting an approval to the variation for also applied to all other approved developments at the time of the council considering those applications. And for that reason, we would therefore request that the city implement a consistent assessment method to this application and approve the application given the precedent that's been set in the area. We also understand, given reason number 1 for refusal, that the city is concerned with the reduction in softscape and area to be available for street trees to be planted by the city. We would form the opposing view. The portion of the lot that fronts Neville Street is 22.2 metres in length. With the inclusion of the 6 metre driveway, there's still a balance of 14 metres by 6 metres of verge area for softscape and landscaping. That's 80 square metres of landscaping. We would argue there's plenty of room to plant trees. As part of the development application, we also offered to the city that we would prepare a landscaping plan by way of a condition of approval to guarantee and provide certainty to the city that the verge area would be extensively landscaped to a high quality, maintained to the satisfaction of the city. We didn't receive a response on that offer. Also, as part of the application process, we did instruct Dale Alcock to prepare a compliant design and see how that would impact the design of the dwelling, with the garage providing access to the right-of-way.
Your 5 minutes is up, so if you could conclude.
Yep, sure. So when we prepared it with the compliant design, we lost the bedroom on the bottom floor, which pretty much we couldn't have universal access. We would like to have, the Paz and Cheryl would like to be able to house their parents there in the future. There would be no ability to house them there if that was the case.
Thank you. I'll just ask if there are any questions from councillors. No, but I will confirm that we have been provided this evening a copy of the letter that was sent. So councillors do have that in order to review. Thank you. Our next deputation is in relation to item 10.4.2. Ms Caroline Friend, speaking in support of the officer's recommendation.
Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to say thank you for letting me speak tonight, and thank you to the City of Bayswater for your ongoing support. I'm Caroline Friend. I'm the chair of the volunteer committee at the Ellis House Community Arts Centre, with the 2 other committee members, Kate and Claire, are with me. We're here because we want to let you know how important it is that we have a new studio space for the City of Bayswater and for the community. And we want to ask that you approve the development application in accordance with the officer's recommendation. The Ellis House Arts Centre comprises a group of over 30 active volunteers, over 240 financial members, and artists and art lovers who use the City of Bayswater Ellis House building and grounds to present exhibitions, create art and conduct classes. The Ellis House building and grounds provide a perfect venue to host art exhibitions and small classes, but a purpose-designed studio space will really enable us to deliver a complete art centre with far-reaching community benefits, enabling the City of Bayswater to connect and enhance the mental health of a broader range of our community. Having a studio space will also mean that we can better support the City of Bayswater to implement the cultural plan and the access and inclusion plan. The studio is architecturally designed to fit in with the existing surroundings in complementary materials to the existing heritage listed building. The art studio will be used for low impact, passive, creative and contemplative purposes, for example, drawing, painting, yoga, meditation, and provide a greater opportunity for connection. We've provided details of the proposed usage, noise levels, parking management, waste management and tree preservation. The details are all in the agenda and will ensure that the studio complies with the identified conditions. So to finish, the Ellis House Art Centre would ask again that you approve the development application for a new studio in accordance with the officer's recommendation. And also we'll be seeking your further support in our ongoing quest for funding for the studio. And I would really encourage all of you who haven't been to visit, come and see what an amazing and inspiring place it is, if you haven't been already. I know a lot of you have, but thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll just ask if there are any questions from councillors. No? Oh, Councillor Peterson-Pick.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Friend. Yeah, thank you for the deputation. I just didn't catch the last sentence that you mentioned, the funding.
Yes.
That you will be looking for assistance.
We're working with the City of Bayswater. We've been talking with the City of Bayswater, talk to Lottery West and to Bendigo Bank, and we've been working on it for 2 years so far. And we would not be asking directly to the City of Bayswater for funding. We'll be asking the City of Bayswater to support us in our funding quest.
Okay, so this application is not subject or dependent on funding. It's
No.
an approval for you to continue your attempts to get the funding.
And it will help
Yep.
us to know we have a development approval in place for applying for funding.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So councillors, that's the last deputation that we've got. I'll now see if there are any questions in relation to the items that were subject of deputation. So I'll start. Are there any questions for officers on item 10.3.2? Councillor Bull?
I'm just declaring the impartiality interest. I'm a member of the shed.
Of the men's shed? Yep.
Correct. Yep.
Any other questions on item, Councillor Ostaszewski?
This is 10.3.2, the Bayswater Men's Shed expansion.
Yes.
Great, thank you. We heard tonight that the men's shed is willing to put forward up to $7,000 for this project. Will the city be able to prepare for me some type of wording for next week that incorporates that into the resolution, so that should it be approved by council next week, that we have something in the resolution in there so that we can act on that $7,000?
I'll go to the CEO. Any other questions on this item? Councillor Peterson-Pick?
Thank you. Can I just seek some clarification about what was said in the deputation, that there is no need for the new electrical, power points? This is what I understood, but the report indicates that there will be a need. So I'm trying to understand, is there confusion or things have changed, and what's the current status?
I'll go to the to the Director of Works and Infrastructure.
Yeah, through the chair, the actual electrical works in terms of putting in the power points and the rewiring internally in the buildings included in the 16,800 that's been quoted in the actual report. In terms of the $20,000 to $25,000, that's talking about the actual supply to the property and if there's a need to upgrade that supply, if there's any additional load added to that power supply. So that's a provisional sum that's been allocated there just in case there's a need to do that upgrade.
Thank you.
Councillor Ostrzowski?
Thank you. And following on from that, that need for the upgrade, we're talking about the need from the men's shed. Is that correct?
Through the chair, if there is additional load applied to the electrical system in the building as a result of the works done to the men's shed, then yes, there will be a need to go and upgrade that power supply to the property.
So based on what we heard tonight, where there won't be any new machinery, there'll just be a shifting around of machinery to create the extra space and to use the space, I'm hearing that there would be no need at this stage for extra electrics. Is that what the city is hearing?
Through the chair, I mean, it's probably better to have that provision in case there's a need identified later on. I mean, otherwise, if we don't provide that amount of money and we find that we do need to have some sort of upgrade conducted, then we'll have to bring the matter back to council.
Any other questions on this?
Sorry, one more. Thank you. So when you say the matter would have to come back to council, there could always be a budget adjustment as we see in our monthly meetings, or there could be some amendments made in our council budgets going forward. So it's not necessarily required at this moment.
Through the chair, that's correct, but probably the thing to keep in mind that if it needs to come back to council, it will create some delays in terms of delivering the project.
I'll now move on to the next item that was subject to a deputation. Are there any questions on item 10.4.1? I believe Councillor Peterson-Pitt, you have some questions on this item?
Yes, I wanted to ask the city if they can just explain a bit more about the reasons behind the requirement for cars to enter via the ROW. So just so we understand where it came from, what's the reasons for that? The right of way.
I'll go to the director.
Yeah, through the chair. The requirement comes from the residential design codes. It's mainly to deal with the impact on the streetscape. I might get the manager of Development Place just to elaborate on the reasoning behind that provision.
So I'm interested in the rationale behind it, not necessarily the provision and the requirement, why this is the requirement.
Through you, Madam Mayor. The residential design codes deal with vehicle access. In clauses 5.3.5 and 6.3.5, now essentially there's a hierarchy of vehicle access. If you have a right-of-way, then you should take that first of all. If there's a secondary street, then you should take that next. And then thirdly, the primary street. So the city also has a right-of-way study, which is for the purpose of prioritising the upgrading of the city's rights-of-way to be paved, drained, and to allow for residential development to back onto it. So this is a paved and drained right-of-way, so it's ready to be accessed, and so it fits the criteria of vehicle access coming off a right-of-way as the first aspect. Where an application doesn't meet the deemed to comply, then the applicant has the ability to apply to the council for consideration under the design principles of the R codes. Now we've gone through those on page 107, and we don't believe that that the proposal actually meets any of those design principles. So first of all, our priority is that the access should come off the right of way, and given that it's paved and drained, it meets that first criteria.
Thank you for that. Just a follow-up question. So we had in the deputation before some concerns about the possibility of having universal access. Having access from the right-of-way, does that impact on the entrance in any way?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the requirement for universal access isn't applicable to a single house. So essentially, when you take access from a right-of-way, you still need to meet the same engineering requirements that you would from primary street. So, you still need to be able to enter and exit that property safely. There isn't a planning consideration that elderly parents, if there's seen to be a reason that they may not be able to access, that's not a planning consideration.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions on this item? Councillor Ball?
Yeah, so my question is, just following on from the discussion just then and the comments in relation to the design principles in the report. The second dot point says the location of the garage off the right-of-way would cause no impact to the streetscape and further opportunities for street trees along the verge. But I would assume that there will be an impact, there will be a different impact than what is currently proposed. So I'm wondering whether we could hear what impact the streetscape will receive as a consequence of putting the garage at the right-of-way. Why is there no impact when something's going to be built there?
I'll go to the Director of...
Through the chair, the comments about no impact is as opposed to if the development had access off the right-of-way, because hence there would be no crossover onto the street. Hence, it leaves space on the verge to be used for soft landscaping or for trees, because the crossover, the access is coming off the right-of-way as opposed to the street. And hence, what it's trying to imply is that the development, essentially the development has got an impact as opposed to, on the streetscape, as opposed to having access off the right-of-way.
Sorry, I didn't understand that.
So basically what the comments implies is that the development will have a greater impact on the streetscape as opposed to having access off the right-of-way, because there would be no crossover onto the street if it had access off the right-of-way.
Okay, so follow-up question, will the 1.8 metre fence that is currently there continue to be there with the side of a house interfacing with the primary street?
I'll go to the Director.
Thanks to the chair. I might just go to the manager to respond to that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, in the event that the city received an application with access from the right-of-way, then they still need to front the primary street with the front of the house. It still has a frontage. It's not an instance where it's a secondary street. So they still have a primary frontage, and they have a frontage to a right-of-way, which the first option is to take vehicle access from that right-of-way. It doesn't mean that the house doesn't still front the primary street.
Yep. Okay. Thanks. And so what I'm struggling to understand is what the interface would be like between the dwelling and the primary street if the right-of-way was shifted to, if the crossover was shifted to the right-of-way. So does the city have any line of sight on what would be a better amenity outcome for the street? What is proposed, or the crossover being on the right-of-way?
Go to the Director.
Thanks for the chair. I might just go and manage, because I know we looked at that aspect as part of our assessment.
Through you, Madam Mayor, a development or a house design without a garage dominating the front elevation is certainly preferable. So if you can take the garage and put it from the right-of-way, you've got that much more opportunity for windows in the street. You've got a greater area of a front yard. You don't have the safety considerations with cars entering the property. because they'll be off the right of way. There's further opportunities for landscaping of the front verge and the front garden.
Yep. So my final question then, so does that mean that a garage where the right of way is being used as the access for the crossover, the garage would be set back from the primary street? Set back from the primary street boundary?
I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, not necessary, and the manager can clarify that, but my understanding is that it will have its side to the street, and that it could be design features within that front facade of the garage with its access coming off the right of way.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand this. So if we go with the officer's recommendation, there is a risk that we could end up with the side of a garage fronting the primary street up to the primary street boundary of the lot without a setback.
Through the chair, potentially, or the garage could be set back at the back of the house. But if it is at the front of the house, could potentially have its side with decorative or design features facing onto the street, primary street.
Just want to make sure I got this 100% right. There is the potential for a wall that is the height of a garage on the primary street boundary line, potentially.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, that one's got me asking questions now on that. So I'll start with the follow-on question for that. And if I may direct this one to the manager, can I just seek clarification on that? Because my understanding is that whichever the primary face of the home is the setback side. So if the primary, the face of the house is facing towards the primary street, that is the site that the setbacks would be applied to. So therefore, the garage wouldn't be able to be built right up to the boundary cadastral line. It would have to be at least 3 metres back.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and we're yet to see a redesign. So obviously the house would front Neville Street. The location of the garage would be dependent on a number of factors of how they actually design the outdoor areas of that house. There's a northern aspect to the back of the site. They may want to locate the garage in the far northwest of the site so that they got better access of the northern remainder of the yard, which would be our preference, obviously. The setbacks to the right of way and the primary street, they wouldn't be able to have that garage at a nil setback. It's not preferable in this particular instance. There is the ability to have nil setbacks to a right of way, but where it's a primary street, we would certainly discourage that.
Okay. Right, and then the original question I had was, I can't quite tell from the image on page 112, it looks like it, but I just want to ask if the right-of-way widening is, if there is a right-of-way widening being applied to this. Yeah.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe that the right-of-way widening has already been taken on this this right-of-way because I'm just trying to get a dimension on it. But given that it's paved and drained, there's a strong likelihood that it's already been widened.
So it's already been taken the entire length of the street of that laneway.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I may need to take that on notice to confirm.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, councillors? I have a question, just following on from some of the information from the deputy. They mentioned something that another house that also has this same right-of-way access was granted a driveway crossover to the principal street. Can you confirm if that's the case?
We don't have the exact addresses that they're referring to, but I'll take that on notice and give you the approval details of each of those properties.
Okay, thank you.
If I can just follow on from that, in some instances where there's an existing crossover to the primary street, then our position has been that we wouldn't take that access away from them. In this instance, there is no existing crossover.
Thank you. Okay, I'll now go on to the next item. Are there any questions from councillors in relation to item 10.4.2, the proposed art studio? No. Okay, thank you. Members of the public, we will now be asking if there are any questions on the remaining items of the agenda, so please feel free to leave if you wish. So I'll now go through the items that councillors have advised in advance that they would like to ask questions on. And if you have any interest to declare, please let me know. So the next one is item 10.2.1, financial reports for the period ended 30th of April. And just before I go to Councillor Ostaszewski, who has indicated that you have a question, I'll just advise councillors that we are now back up and running on the live stream. So that has been resolved. Councillor Ostaszewski? 10.2.1.
Thank you. And that's been taken care of. Thank you.
Yep.
So.
Okay. The next one that I've been advised is 10.3.3, verge tree mortality. Councillor Ostaszewski?
Thank you. This was a really interesting report, and I just wanted to find out a little bit more information if I can. At the council meeting where we adopted this, I asked a question if we could also consider looking at the mortality of trees, depending on whether they were under power. Whether they were under power lines or not under power lines, and I didn't see any of those figures in the report here. So I'm just wondering, did the city collect that data, and what did that data say about the mortality of trees under power lines versus not under power lines?
I'll go to the director.
Sorry, can I just pass that question on to the Manager of Parks and Gardens?
Through the Chair, the report was drafted according to the questions asked through the notice of motion. So that data wasn't collected.
I guess it's a comment, again, disappointing considering we were told that would be considered as part.
Councillor Peterson-Pick, you have some questions on this item?
Just several questions. So there was some discussion in the report about veg trees need development. Any conditions that we put with regards to trees on verges when it comes to developments? I was curious to understand if we have a condition with regards to watering, or it's a general care condition, or do we have specific condition with regards to how often water the trees, or are they required to water the trees?
I'll go to the Director Community.
Through the Chair, if there is a street tree, my understanding is that there is a condition that requires watering of trees for, I think, 2 years from when it's planted. That's my understanding. I'm not sure whether the manager wants to clarify that further, but there is a condition, my understanding, that requires it to be watered for a period of time, or maintained, which includes watering.
Okay, thank you. There was also some reference to non-compliance by developers when it comes to caring for the veg trees, and there was mentioned that with the figures, quite a lot of veg trees died because of non-compliance. has the city taken any actions so far against developers in those situations?
I'll go to the Director of Community.
Through the chair, my understanding is we haven't, or we have. I think that one of the difficult challenges is getting the evidence in terms of how the tree died, but I might get the manager to confirm that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we're currently pursuing two particular developments where we're holding the verge bond, where two street verge trees have died as a result of as a direct result of construction works, and we're currently in the process of a third development site where we're seeking legal advice as to our avenues for to get recompense and replanting.
So this is the first time that the city is actually trialing, dealing with those situations, from what I understand.
Through you, Madam Mayor, certainly with the use of the verge bond, we haven't used that before in the past.
Yep.
But given that street verge trees are within the verge, that it's reasonable that those funds can be used.
Thank you. Another question, if I can. So council's resolution mentioned 7 points, and I couldn't find any figures with regards to point 4, which is on page 93. The estimated overall loss of value to the city of having a mature veg tree die and require removal, and the overall loss of value of all the dead mature trees and young trees across the city during the summer months. So I couldn't find those details. I'm happy to take it on notice if the city needs to look into this, but maybe I missed it.
I'll go to the Director of Works.
Yeah, through the chair, can I take that on notice and I can provide that information before the next meeting?
Yep, I'm happy. Yep, thank you. The report also mentions on page, I'll give you the right page so everyone can look at it, page 100 at the top, that following the revision of the urban tree policy last year, only 20% of removed trees in the summer months were replaced. So my question is, what are the reasons for that? Why we were able to only replace 20%? Is it property owners haven't replied back to the city? What are the causes?
I'll go to the Director of Works.
Yeah, through the chair, the policy requires us to get the approval of the property owner to plant a tree on their verge. So officers are basically contacting those property owners and asking whether they want a replacement tree planted. And most of those cases, they've come back and said they don't want a tree planted there.
I'll just give some supplementary information about that because I had this discussion with the Director myself, and I've requested that we go back and ask the reasons why, not just enough to say yes or no, but to get an understanding of the reasons why they're answering in that way. So just confirming with the Director that we'll be seeking that information, the city will be seeking that.
Yes, we will. We'll ask those questions of those residents.
Thank you. My final question. So there is a list of possible measures that the city could take. That's on page 100 and 101. I didn't see a possible measure when it comes to educating our residents to try and provide water to the trees on their verges. Is this not something that can be considered by the city at some point, in light of some of the outcome of the report that shows that those who have been watered survive better? So is this not something that we can consider?
Go to the Director of Works and Infrastructure.
Through the chair, it is a possibility. We can encourage people to water the trees on their verge, and it's something that we'll look at as officers going forwards to see if we can promote that more so in the community.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I just got a follow-up question on one of the questions that Councillor Peterson-Pick asked in relation to what's on page 100 with requiring consent from the adjacent property owner. Can I just get clarification on that? Because I'm possibly under the mistaken assumption. I thought that was only to apply to new trees in the annual tree planting program where we, give free street trees. How is it that it's being applied to all trees? Because my interpretation of something like this is if they've got an existing mature tree that dies for whatever reason over summer, stress, etc., then that is a replacement tree. It's not a completely new tree.
I'll go to the Director of Works and Infrastructure.
Yeah, through the chair. When we replace the trees, those trees get added to the tree planting program, and through that process that we have with the tree planting program, we go and ask the residents. So, in terms of the intent of the policy, perhaps that's something that we'll look at with the revision of the policy going forwards, and just clarify and make sure that's clearly spelt out in the policy going forwards.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Ostaszewski?
Thank you. We were talking before about only 20% of the trees being replaced, or the residents, only 20% of residents wanting trees replaced on their verge, down from the 83% the year before. So what's stopping the city planting 63% of other trees in other locations? So if a resident says no, why doesn't the city then just go and find a park or a reserve or a nearby location to plant the tree? What's stopping us from doing that instead of just going, oh, well, it's 20%, tough luck? Why aren't we making up the 63%? Is there something in the policy that doesn't allow us to do that?
I'll go to the Director of Works and Infrastructure.
Through the chair, there is nothing stopping us from doing that, and I believe that we are planting in other areas as well, not just in front of those verges or in front of other people's verges. There are other areas such as parks and other spaces that we try to take advantage of for those additional trees.
So where a person says no, the city finds an opportunity to plant that tree elsewhere. Is that what I'm hearing?
Not specifically that we're targeting each individual tree, but we do add it to the tree replacement program when we try to, or tree planting program, and try to plant it somewhere where we can find a suitable space.
Another one? Yeah.
All right, yeah, thank you. Sorry about before. I am disappointed about not getting information about the data from power lines versus no power lines. I guess that was, I was hoping to see some information on which side were the healthier trees. So I'm going to ask someone, please, does pruning trees increase the health of a tree?
I'll go to the Director of Works and Infrastructure.
Can I refer that to the Manager of Parks and Gardens?
Through the chair, when you undertake pruning of trees, it's for specific reasons. The Australian standard does suggest that pruning is only undertaken when absolutely necessary, and that is to preserve the health of the tree. So pruning a tree does not increase the health of the tree. It's done for specific reasons and to get a specific outcome. Generally, trees should be left. If you want them to grow to the full maturity and stay healthy for as long as possible, they should be left to grow naturally. But we understand in an urban environment, quite often that's impossible. So we try and minimise the amount of pruning where we can.
One final question, thank you. Have a guess. Do you think trees under power lines are healthier than trees that are not under power lines? Because of the pruning that the ones under power lines get each year.
Is that just a yes or no question?
You're the professional, so I was trying to find out whether the trees that are under power lines, because they get regularly pruned, are more healthier or more vibrant or grow better than the ones that aren't under power lines. I'm just trying to determine, which ones are growing better. We had a report done about trees and their mortality rates and which ones are growing great because of reticulation and all sorts of bits and pieces. So I'm interested to know if trees that are part of the annual pruning program, such as those under power lines, are actually stronger, healthier trees.
Through the chair, to my knowledge and understanding, no, they're not.
Councillor Johnson, did you have some questions on this item?
Thank you, I did, and probably some of them are similar to what's been across the same thing, so just let me find my page number. So on the bottom of page 90, 98, it's table 7, audit results, average tree health. It says irrigated trees are 2.9, non-irrigated 2.7, and development 2.4, and that's a range of 0 to 5. So is that correct to read that in front of a development they're less healthy? So I didn't know how to quite read the scale. Yeah, so if someone could explain that to me, please.
I'll go to the Director of Works and Infrastructure.
That, through the chair, in terms of that scale, so in terms of developments, they're less healthy.
Sorry, do you mind bringing your mic forward? We can't hear you very well.
Sorry about that. In terms of the scale that's used there, from what it says is that where there's a development, they're less healthy.
Thank you. So if a tree, this is the average tree health in front of a site that's being developed is 2.4. Is there a way of expressing the level of health of that tree? Is that tree going to survive? Is that viable? Is that a viable, healthy tree at 2.4?
Go to the Director.
Can I refer that to the Manager of Parks and Gardens?
Yeah, through the chair, yes, it is still a viable tree. But I guess it is more susceptible to environmental factors that could lead to its decline and potential death, given it is being stressed due to the activities happening around it. And if the environment isn't controlled through tree protection zones and those sort of protections, then those issues can be exacerbated.
Thank you. So I understand it's a standard building condition that we have tree protection zones in front of existing street trees. And then, I think I heard you saying, to answer to a previous question, that we're now looking at withholding a bond refund if the tree dies. Is that correct?
I'll go to the Director.
If we take a bond for a tree, then yes, we can retain that if something happens to that tree. That's correct.
Thank you. How much is the bond normally? Is there a standard bond? Is it one flat rate?
I believe it's about $1,400.
Is that sufficient to replace a tree that is killed?
Through the chair, I believe it's sufficient to replace it. Sorry, I'll repeat that. It is sufficient to replace that tree. In terms of being a deterrent, I'm not sure if it's the right amount, but it is enough for replacing it.
Because given some of the applications we've heard before, I think the Halliwell method evaluation would place a lot of our street trees at higher than that. Do we look at that in terms of replacement?
I'll go to the Director of Community Director.
Through the chair, I might just get the Manager of Development Place just to clarify and confirm.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the Halliwell condition, or the Halliwell assessment, has largely been covered off in a new condition relating to where a tree is vandalised or it dies as a result of construction. That's been in place now for, I think, probably about 5 months. So we're finding that any new development is largely covered off with that new condition. Those 3 examples that I gave to you before, those developments didn't have that condition on. Yep.
Terrific. Thank you for clarifying. I've got another question about the number of trees that have died in the hottest summer in record. And I think it says in what's my page 101 at the top, where it talks about the replacement of removed street trees within a 12 to 18 month period. It says So when 20% were replaced, but in the previous year 83 were replaced, am I correct reading that the 83 was replaced when our urban tree policy was an opt-in policy, and the 20% was replaced when we had an opt-out, and the 20% was when we had an opt-in? Is that correct? Was there a change in policy between those two summers?
I'll go to the director.
I believe that's correct.
Do you have any other questions? Councillor Eason.
Yeah, I'm just hearing numbers being thrown around. So just looking at the sample sizes, has there been any balancing done to the stats? Because you've only got 12 trees that have got with developments, and the other two sample sizes are 158, 153.
I'll go to the director.
Can I refer that to the Manager of Parks and Gardens? Can we take that on notice?
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions, councillors, on this item? No. Okay. We'll go to the next one. Item 10.5.1, proposed temporary closure of portions of Railway Parade. Councillor Johnson, you have a question?
Yes. Sorry, this report was provided under separate cover, so I'm just going to have to flick to that one. Thank you. Sorry, I can't find that at the moment. I might come back to that if I might.
No problem. We'll now go to item 10.5.2, proposed revitalisation planning Maylands Town Centre. Councillor Peterson-Pearce.
Yes, just two questions. The report refers to the Maylands Town Centre Co-op Group, MTC. Just wanted to confirm which group we're talking about. Is this the Watley Crescent Businesses Group or a different group? Or should I?
I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, it's a group of traders in Maylands called the Co-op. I'm not sure exactly what the makeup is. I'm not sure if the principal engineer knows exactly what the makeup is, but my understanding is it's principally Watley Crescent businesses.
Yes, Watley Crescent. And I understand that they have been supporting the study as well as the Maylands Business Association. This is what I took from the report. Is this correct?
There's a degree of support from all of the groups. I don't think they agree on some of the proposals that have been put forward, but there is a degree of support of revitalisation of the area, yes.
Okay, thank you. The next question. The report on page 157, there is a table at the bottom which talks about the estimated costs, and it talks about 5% design of various options. So can I just understand what this is referring to?
Yeah, through the chair, 5% design is just the first sort of iteration of a design process. So it's basically just above a concept design. So because there's going to be a number of options, you wouldn't do them all to detailed design stage. So you'd only do them to 5% design, and then you'd go out to further consultation and look at which ones were the preferred option before progressing with further design, rather than going through that full design process for a number of options.
So 5% of the design, concept design, is cost $200,000. So how much would would cost doing the whole design? Like we're talking about,
See, those prices have been, or those costs, sorry, have been provided by Main Roads. Typically, when Main Roads are involved, the cost seems to be quite significant because of their overheads and some of the processes they go through. A 5% design, wouldn't necessarily cost that much. I think it can be done cheaper. But I suppose if we look at the recent design quotes we got in for the Morley Streetscape Works, they were quite expensive. The current market dictates that those sort of designs are expensive because of the demand that's out there at the present time. In saying that, my understanding is that the demand currently is on design, and that demand will, or the constraints will shift to construction in the next year and a half, so design will probably ease off. So I think costs will come down. In term, if the 5% design, if there's, would probably be about, it could be about 50% of the cost, so it could be another $200,000 to $400,000 to progress a design. Keeping in mind you're only going to be progressing one design, not a various number of options.
Yep. Thank you.
Are there any other questions on this item? No? Councillor Johnson, have you found the one? Do you want to go back to that one just yet?
Thank you. Yeah, just wondered on the on the request to close Railway Parade, so 10.5.1. What's the difference? So I'm just going back and forward between the two. Could someone please explain to me the difference between what was advertised and what we're being asked to approve?
Go to the director.
Yeah, through the chair, the difference is just the dates. So basically they've moved it back to the 18th of August when originally it was proposed to start, sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I've got the right ones, 10th of June. So they've moved it back a couple of months, and that means the whole thing goes across in a front of another 2 months.
Apart from the timing, were there any other proposed changes?
No.
Are there any other questions on this item? No, I'll move on to the only other item that I've been advised that there's questions on is item 14.1.2, Mertone Village rates, which is confidential. So before we go behind closed doors, I'll just do one more check if there are any questions on any of the other items on the agenda. If not, we'll I'll ask if have someone to move behind closed doors. No. Okay. So Councillors, if there is nothing else, I will close the agenda briefing forum at 8:37 p.m. Thank you. Councillors, if there is nothing else, I will close the agenda briefing forum at 8:37 p.m. Thank you.